Well, good morning. It's a beautiful day here in Queensland, just starting to warm up a little. I'm about to show you some more uses on the Myford Lathe. I had a request from one of the viewers about using a steady, and I thought this morning I'd show you what it's all about and how I actually use the steady on the Myford Lathe. Okay, what I'm manufacturing this morning is one of these pins. This is what I make up to actually lock onto a Cruisemaster trailer hitch. It's used on most caravans here. It's a pin that drops down a position with a big padlock through the bottom, and it's designed as a security device. It's made of two sections, the main part being where my thumb is, the solid piece, and then it has a cap on the end which locks it into place. And that is made by using some scrap stainless, which is this piece here that'll become the pin, and the cap will be made out of this big solid piece of stainless steel. So as you can see, it's a reasonable length, so probably about 1 foot long, and this is where I'll be actually using the steady. I'll show you how it works. Now on with the job. Yeah, I'm just starting to make this shaft up, so just turning it down to the correct dimensions now. We're underway. Solid piece of stainless steel. Make sure you lubricate the work, obviously. No problems with the Myford. Handles it beautifully. Slowed the speed down slightly. It's better for harder metal. See this okay. I'm using a slightly faster feed speed to get through the work quicker, but as I get down to finishing cuts I actually slow down the feed speed. You can probably see there it's like almost like a little very fine thread on there because of the feed. It's going a little fast, but it's doing the job for taking down bulk. When I do a final cut to get a good finish, I just simply slow down the speed and you'll see the end result. If you're wondering why I don't use a live center, in this case I need access to get the tool in fairly close, so standard center does the job fine. Just keep it lubricated. Okay, ready for the final cut, so changing the speed down to a slower feed speed. Power on, off the clutch, engage the drive, and this will only take a very small amount. That's engaged. There we go, wasn't fully engaged. We're away. Okay. And this is now making a much better cut. Slowing the speed down. Probably see there it's giving a nice finish. So just let that run all the way through. Final check on the measurements, and that should be that section done. Well, that is the final cut. So as you can see, the difference in the finish is quite remarkable. Very, very smooth finish. All about the right amount of feed and not taking too much on the last pass, and you'll get a lovely finish like that. Hardly needs polishing. Come up really, really well. One thing I'd like to point out is the swarf that comes off. It's come off beautifully. But with these hard metals, it's absolutely razor sharp. You've got to be very careful. You have your hands, certainly and fingers out of the way, because these are surprisingly like little curled up razor blades. So need to treat it with a great deal of caution. Now just turning down the threaded end. Just feed a bit of oil on that. Just cut that thread off. Material that's underneath. Still going, feeding in at the highest speed. Okay, that's the measurement I'm trying to obtain there. So we're down to, what's that, 14.12 in millimeters compared to, trying to get you into focus here, with this one-handed stuff. And what have we got now? And we have 14.45, so very, very close to the final cut. Okay, on the last cut now. This is the final cut, skimming a little off. Should be able to see it there. Just taking off the whisker and giving us that nice finish that I'm looking for. These Myfords are certainly a lovely lathe. Do just about anything you want them to do. Off just for there, and then I did that last little bit. And there it is, that lovely finish I'm looking for. Couldn't ask for better. Just got to get the length finalised now and get ready for the end cap. Okay, stage one complete. Now cut the size, so ready to make the cap for it now. If you wondered how I cut the end off, I cheat. I use a hacksaw, mainly because it's a very hard material. It's just as easy to use the hacksaw to cut that last little piece off rather than try to use a paring tool, or parting tool as I should say, which you use on the other metals. But it's very important if you ever use a hacksaw on a lathe, and make sure you clean your lathe bed afterwards to get any filings or bits and pieces that you don't actually scratch your bed. Very important to look after your bed. So yeah, on to the next stage. I've now placed the item into the jaws and the chuck, and as you can see it sticks out a long way. There's no way you could machine the end of that. It'd be wobbling all over the place. It's also not running through as well, and this is where you use the classic case where you use the steady, because you obviously can't feed something that large through the chuck, so it needs to be steadied at the other end to be able to be machined. Okay, there we go. Grab the steady, place it on the lathe bed. Now it's important here to keep this part here pointing towards you. It will actually go on either way. The other thing I do is I run a bit of emery over whatever you're wanting to put through, whether it be a bit of steel or a rod or whatever, because you've got nicks and cuts in it. You don't want it actually damaging your little brass runners here on your steady. So just give it a very light polish up just to make it reasonably smooth. The steady, then we release the top, slide it through to basically, say you've got some working distance here. I'll set it about there. Next thing is to lock up the locking clamp at the bottom, and it's easily done with the spanner. Hope this is coming out okay. One-handed here with the phone. And I've got that clamp down now good and tight. Bring her over. Now, as you can see by these brass slides here, they have to come in contact with the steady. I've already preset that, but basically it's a very, very simple job. It's just a case of loosening off here, and as you can see they're slotted, so you can just slide them up till they're just contacting. The other important thing to do when you bring up the clamp, push this one down just a little bit further, because it's important to maintain this gap under here, because you're going to have to screw that down a little bit to keep pressure on. The last thing you want is to have it loosen up too much, and then all of a sudden you'll get vibration setting in. So basically just tighten that down just very lightly, like so. I'll turn the lathe on, and as you can see now she's starting to run nice and smooth. Just a little bit of pressure on there. And of course the next thing to do is add some oil. And now with my trusty oil can we will add oil. Very, very important to keep the lubrication up. You want the lubrication to, obviously you're not wanting to wear those brass sections away or cause any damage on the piece. So you will need to basically fairly constantly, a few drops of oil every now and again, keep it running in a little bit of lube there, and you'll find that'll work fine. So that's working perfectly now. She's running nice and true. I've still got a gap on my clamp there, and we're basically ready to turn. I actually might slow the speed down a little bit. In this particular case, for those of you who know me, I do love my tool steel and cutting my tool steel in this case, but when I'm doing stainless I always use these tungsten pieces. So my tungsten piece is in there, and I'm now getting ready to start machining, and we'll show you the next section. To start on this piece now, I'm going to just square the end off. I normally lock the carriage down so it doesn't want to move away from the piece. It's just a simple matter of just wind it back and start to trim that edge off. Take a little bit off to start with. And get that nicely trued up, and I'll start on the cap itself. See here perfectly how that center steady is working. Without that, I wouldn't be able to do this sort of work with that length of material. The next part is to center the piece, because I'm going to recess it very slightly. So use the centering tool there to get a perfect center. And then I'm going to open it out so that the cap will fit on neatly, which you'll get to see a bit later on. Okay, well that's our cap machined and ready to go. You can see I've got a recess in there which will take that component there and be held together with some super strong permanent Loctite, and tighten down very tight so it'll become a permanent bond. It'll press in there quite nicely. Almost finished. Well, there we go, the job has completed. Cap's now on. I had to drill a hole through the bottom, that's where the padlock goes through. Uses a container type padlock. Completed job, locked into position, and looks great. So that's off to the customer tomorrow in the mail. Okay, this is the DO35 hitch made by Cruise Master, and of course my pin that I just finished on the lathe. So showing you how it actually works to lock the device up. Simply drops through there. You release the locking latch there, and then underneath there where I drilled that hole, that's where our big lock goes through, which I'll just show you in a sec. Locked and secured. Very, very strong lock, one of the best with that pin. One of the strongest locks, I believe, currently on the market compared to a lot of the commercial ones that are around. So there it is, fitting the DO35, which is an absolutely brilliant tow hitch. I'll also show you a still photo at the end of this video of a vehicle with one of these hitches on. The caravan got hit at the back by a semi-trailer, flipped over the van, but the car stayed upright purely because of this hitch. And that's because this is a 360-degree hitch that actually rotates at that point there, which I can't show you at the moment. You can see the pivot point there, so that rotates over. Job to show you, that's where it pivots there, and you've also got pivot here as well. So it is a full 360 degrees. So if your van goes over, your car doesn't go with it like it does with a standard ball hitch. So this type of hitch makes them one of the best on the market.